Like I said, winning is an amazing feeling. There's a lot of different ways to measure wins. There's a lot of different ways to calculate whether you've won or not. I have seen a lot of success in my life, and I would call every one of them wins. And some of them are in my career, and I want to give you examples of career, and I'm going to give you some examples of family. The one with career would be the way that, I'm a natural empath. I feel other people's emotions. I'm constantly worried what other people think. I'm always wanting to do things to make people happy. And early in my career, that made me naturally good at this type of leadership style. I wouldn't make big decisions at work until I've thought of all the different people that were affected by it. And, am I making the right decision? Is it going to help my team? If it hurts any one individual, is there a better reason why that was okay? And early in my career, I was doing it as an empath. As I started to look back at my career at win after win after win after, all these successes, I started to think, I'm going to have to teach this to other people. Why am I being successful? What is the determining factor? And I really could point every single arrow back at empathy. My ability to build teams, to talk to people, to make every decision, to build a program around, how do I keep everyone in the equation as happy as possible while achieving the success of the company? And it was done through empathy. And as I progressed in my career, I started to study different things, and it was all psychology based. And it was because I wanted to understand people better. I wanted to understand the way women thought. I wanted to understand the way men thought. I wanted to understand the way kids thought. I wanted to understand all these different things. And luckily, in my situation early in my career, I held pretty much every one of the positions that I eventually ended up being in charge of being a leader for. So it was easier. I could think back of, the work-related things that they would be suffering from my decisions. And I was able to make decisions that were more favorable to their day-to-day tasks. And you can't always do it, but when your team realizes that every decision you make is going to be in their best interest within your capability, they start to have a lot of trust, and they end up wanting to protect you, and they want to protect the rest of the team and the department, because it's the one place where they come that they feel like they're understood, they feel like they're heard. And these are all elements that come when you lead with empathy, when you use empathy as one of your primary tools. So in work, when you're using empathy, it helps you to build the teams. There's another place where in the work environment that I used empathy, and it was understanding how to talk or convey a message to different levels of people at the company, whether it was the executive or the engineer or the production worker. Every one of those people needed to hear information from me, and they needed to know why we were trying to accomplish a certain goal. So I had to take the goal and break it into 3 different pieces and figure out what in this goal does this person, the general laborer, production worker, have to benefit from this new process? What portion of this process does the engineer benefit from, and what portion of the process does the executive benefit from? So the executive, I had to put myself in his shoes. What does he want to hear? What is he trying to figure out? That executive wants to know what the ROI is. He wants to know how fast this is going to pay the company back. How fast are we going to make more money? How fast are, he might care a little bit about all these other elements, but his primary focus is, he's going to be getting his acclimates, his wins from the ROI, like how much we fix and produce for the company. The engineer, he's really just looking at the black and white of it. You guys want this done, I'll take care of it, I'll get that. He doesn't care if he's hurting this person, that person. He's, some of the really great engineers, they're kind of paying attention to that stuff, but for the most part, they just want to get their job done, and they want it to be functional when they're done. And then you got your production worker. He doesn't care about any of the other 2 things. They just want to know, what is this going to make easier in my day? So when I use empathy in this scenario, I have to sit in the mind of the CEO or the VP and think, okay, how am I going to represent or present ROI to this person so that they can see that investing in this idea is the way to go? And how do I communicate to this engineer, this is the end goal we're looking to accomplish, and here's the equipment I think we can do it with. And I have to try to think of what that engineer needs to hear from me to understand the project. Then I need to go to the person that's doing the work on the line and understand what part of their project do I need to explain to them so that they're all in on helping get this thing go. And through empathy, I figure out the right way to communicate to each one of the elements of the team to make sure that we're all trying to accomplish the end goal. We're all trying to accomplish it for a different reason, but we're all trying to get to the same thing. And this is where I use the term, use your empathy ability to intersect your wants and needs with their wants and needs to achieve a common goal. So that's how I would use empathy in the work environment. Empathy, I'll give you an example and I'll tell you a story of me and my son. I own a construction business. I have trucks and trailers that need to be washed. My son owns a car detailing business that he started up, 15 years old, super proud of him. He does a phenomenal job. If you do in a car, he does a phenomenal job. Like, the thing looks brand new when you get in it. Well, him and I have been kind of strategizing how he can grow his company. And one of the things we talked about is, build a mobile company that's going to wash the trucks for fleets. And, he started talking to me about washing my trucks. And I told him, yeah, sure, I'll pay you $30 a month and I want you to wash the trucks unlimited. And he got pissed straight off at me because he charges a lot more than that. He's worth a lot more than that. But my point to him was, why would I go with your product if I can pay for the little sticker on my window and have my guys drive through the car wash? And he was getting frustrated, and I just told him, I said, hold on a second, all right? Just let me think through this. I'm going to help you with this. And the reason I was pausing him is because him and I were kind of getting into a little bit of an emotional debate, and I needed him to hold back for a second because I was trying to think from my standpoint what he needed to tell me so that I would inevitably I would just have to go with him. Like, it would be my best option. And what I'm doing in this process is I'm trying to teach my son empathy. But this is a really unique story that kind of helps you understand the benefits of empathy, maybe from a different perspective. And this is almost like a sales perspective. So I got thinking about it, and the first thing I thought was, okay, I really, if I was going to try to convince me not to use the sticker on the window, I'd say, do you really want your guys at the car dealer or the car wash unhooking their trailer, driving through, washing, and hooking their trailer back up? Like, how much time is that taking out of your work day, right? That's number one. But it's not super powerful. I mean, it could be argued either way. But the more important factor was my trailers. I don't have any way to wash my trailers. You can't pull them through there, and somebody's going to have to do it. Either I have my guys do it and pay them by the hour to do it, or I figure out if this is the right path. And this is where I told my son, I'm like, okay, so here's what you're going to do. I said, you're going to give me a sales pitch. You're going to tell me that you'll wash my trailers $100 a piece. You'll do it on site wherever my guys are. You won't get in the way. And that to me is a deal. Like, I'll pay you to do that, but I'm not paying you to do the trucks. And I said, so the way that you're going to frame this, and if you're going to work with somebody else, is you're going to say, look, I'm going to come, I'll do this job for you. I'm going to wash your trailers. I'm going to take care of that part of it. I'll do it right on site. You give me the schedule where to go and $100 per wash. And then I said, and this is where you get the extra money. You're going to go, okay, well, I'm already there. I got the hoses out. Why don't I give you a deal and I'll wash the trucks too? You throw me an extra $30. I said, so now I went from telling you that I only was willing to give you $30 a month to wash all of my stuff unlimited. I've just shown you a way to convince me that it's a value add for me to pay you $130 every single time my truck and trailer needs to get washed, because you're going to go there, you're going to wash the trailer, and you might as well wash the truck while you're there to save me the money on the sticker. And I'm now, from a business standpoint, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't I do that? And it was kind of interesting because at the end of this conversation, my son was like kind of taken back a little bit. He's like, I thought you were going to try to like talk me into doing it for less. I didn't realize you were going to figure. I'm like, son, it's not about that. It's about you understanding that you need to see things from my perspective. I don't care if you make money. You're trying to sell me something. Yeah, no kidding. That's what you do. You're trying to make money. Well, I'm trying to save money as a business owner. So you need to try to figure out a way that I win and you win. So it was a way that I taught him about empathy, and it's another way to implement empathy. In another, another tier of this in sales, the best way to look at anything when you're trying to sell it is from someone else's perspective. If you're just trying to make the sale to get your commission, you're going to lose every single time. But if you can be quiet for a minute, listen to the customer, start to feel their pain points and understand, what's going on, what's wrong in their situation, how can your product, how can you fix it for them? And then you're going to present your case from the standpoint of, hey, remember all these pains and problems you've had? We're going to solve them with this item that I'm selling you, right? So again, this is derived from empathy. Empathy is the key component to every single win. It's been that way for everything that I've won in my life. When, every division that I built for every company, I built with empathy. I built, using all of the available resources I had to make everyone's job as easy as possible. And I had to look at their job from my perspective. If they weren't good talkers and they weren't giving me good feedback, I had to try to think, okay, well, when they're working and doing this day-to-day task, what are their pain points? What are they suffering from? If I was doing that, if I were to go and sit down and do that work, what would be frustrating me? What would be holding me back? What would be my setbacks? And then I take the power that I have in leadership and eliminate those factors. And now this person, because I used empathy, is starting to go, oh man, John really understands me. He really gets what's going on here. And now they're working harder and harder and harder because not because they want the extra work, but because they're trying to protect an environment that they've never experienced before. When you lead with empathy, whether that's at your family or anything else, my son's going to value our conversations more because he realizes I'm looking out for his best interest. My team is going to value my leadership more. They're going to want to keep me in leadership because they feel like whoever's in charge of them, this particular scenario, me, is understanding them. I understand what they want. So now, not only are they driving hard to achieve the goal, but they're driving even harder to protect the team, to protect the outcome, to protect me, to make sure that everything we need done gets done because they've never worked in those environments before. And I've gotten amazing feedback from all my teams. I've had people, when I first come in, I'm kind of hard on the team. I'm trying to get things in order. And at first, there's some resistance. But at the end of the day, when all of this stuff comes together and starts to work, these guys don't want me to leave. And I've had plenty of them compliment me. They're like, man, I've just never worked anywhere where somebody understood what was going on so much and cared so much. And it's really, I think there's a lot of other leaders out there that do care. I just don't think that it expresses well because they're not leading from a perspective of what does this person think? What does this person need? And when you take those extra steps and put that in place, and you are ahead of the game by thinking ahead and using that empathy tool. So it's very powerful. It works everywhere in life. It works in relationships. If you can use empathy in your intimate relationships, those things matter. And once I identified that this was such a critical tool, I started to study some things surrounding it to help me get better at it. And those things are all psychology based. It's understanding men, it's understanding women, it's understanding childhood effects from trauma, from being raised in this situation, being raised in that situation, rich, poor, and the more books and information that you can take in to help you understand those other ways of life that maybe are in conflict of yours. Maybe you don't know because you didn't live that way. You didn't experience those things. If you can grow that empathy through reading and understanding valuable books, which I'm going to attach down here in the description, some books that I've read that I think are incredibly valuable to this. And, you know, some that you wouldn't even think, believe it or not, a book like The Five Love Languages. I was so annoyed hearing everybody talk about it, but I decided to read it. And after I read it, I'm like, well, this is actually quite valuable. This teaches you, you know, how you can reward people based on different personality types and the way that people project those personality types at you so you can read them properly. So don't rule any book out. I think anything that's teaching you about other people and how they think is valuable to you in life. And I think it goes beyond career and family and everything else. So another thing that I used, another tool that I used was personality tests. And I would use this at work, and I would use it in our leadership groups. We would all take their personality tests and discuss our personalities in front of people, but that helped other people be more empathetic. You know, there's ways of doing this without being an empath. For me, it comes naturally because I feel other people's emotions. I go through that naturally, but don't think you can't create it. You know, you have to probably put in a little more effort if you're not a natural empath, but you can definitely force yourself to start to develop some techniques to look at other people from their perspective and try to figure out how you can add to the situation from their perspective, what they need from you, what they want from you. And it takes a little work, but I'm telling you, it's worth it if you want to be seeing those wins on a regular basis. So hopefully this video helped you out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bring you guys as much of my life experience as I can to try and help everybody out. Check out the description below for those books. Take care.